Good evening.
Hi Priyanka, Anal, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ritu.
Good evening. Good evening, and ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
स्वाति भी है ना? हाँ, स्वाति हाय.
क्लास है.
Someone is traveling on train.
Yes, it's me. Can I join back sometime later? Rochelle. Can I join back sometime later?
Just mute yourself.
Uh, Hello, everyone. I think we can wait for another 5 minutes to allow others to come in, and then we begin the session. Is that okay?
Okay,
For
ma'am.
those of you who have, yeah, if you have any doubts, any questions in the meantime, we can definitely talk and begin the discussion. My name is Anusha. I will just switch on my camera in a bit. But this paper is building on what you did in academic, linguistic and stylistic analysis last semester. And so the paper actually will require you to remember concepts from the last semester in order to complete your analysis. And it is expecting, it is expected that you will be able to remember quite a bit of what you had studied and applied in your questions then. I think, I don't know whether others are joining in or not. I don't know whether I should wait for all of them. So we can kind of begin with our discussions for this paper. The same rules apply as for last semester. I think you all met me last semester. Hi, I'm Anusha.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think you met me last semester for this same paper. And so we're going to continue from there. And to give you an overview of what this paper is about, I think, am I sharing the screen? Is that visible to you all?
Not right now.
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just share the screen from the other device. Right. So one that you will see is the same rules apply. You will have the same folder link to the certain elements that come in through the device, through the the link. The semester 2, and I'm not going to the end pattern exam because the end term exam, I don't know, would most likely also again be not multiple, may still turn out to be multiple choice, right? We don't know what the exam pattern is going to be like. What I'm giving you is a gist of how the paper in the old avatar used to look, pre-COVID avatar used to look. But it also maps to a holistic picture of what the entire paper really deals with. So the paper actually deals with phonetic transcription, where you would be given, typically what you had were 3 questions, where you would be asked to transcribe the select answers from the 3 questions. You would be identifying 5 consonant sounds. You would be giving 3 term labels. We will do all of that today. And you would be identifying any 5 predominant vowel sounds and giving 3 term labels for them. So typically for B and C, you could actually score entire 10 on 10 theoretically, and transcription generally used to be a lot more challenging, but even then you could get a 3 out of 5. If you were very bad, a 2 out of 5. If you were horrible, then yes, you could get a 0, but you could also get a 5 on 5. So that's the first paper. Then the same poem, the first question, and the same poem would then be given for a stylistic and linguistic analysis as given in question 1, which you are familiar with because we did linguistic and stylistic analysis of prose in last semester, where you had to do clause analysis in question as part of unit 2, and the discourse analysis was unit 3. And what you literally had in some of those multiple choice questions was that you would be given a particular line and you'd be asked whose point of view is it, etc. Similar things apply here. Point of view still applies because you would be asked whose point of view is the poem from. You would be asked what is a figure of speech in this poem. You would be asked certain questions definitely on that basis. So this is a linguistic and stylistic analysis building on the short note questions that you had last year and last semester, and building on some of the discourse analysis elements that you had last semester. So it is assumed that you will be building on it and not, regressing. So you can go back to those old lectures. Passage question 3 was generally on a passage. It was on narratology. Some of these concepts, again, we have done last semester itself, such as point of view, character analysis, relationships, whether it is round character, flat character. We will do a little bit more in this semester. Last semester, we looked at clauses, phrases, how were they positioned, whose point of view, definitely, but also, what figure of speech was there in that passage and all of it. This time you would have more of voice, the use of setting, tone, mood, figures of speech, if there is climax in the passage, etc. And or in a sentence, a given sentence. If it's multiple choice question, then it would be, of course, a given 2 lines and an extract, and you would be asked a question on it. Whether the action is static, dynamic, chronological, whether it jumps back and forth with flashbacks, non-linear in that sense. So you have typically in the exam, what you would have if you were giving an open-ended exam is a narratology, a passage from a novel or a short story. And you would be asked questions on point of view, character, voice, and ABC, basically 5 marks each. And the last part that you have, which is unit 4, not unit things, unit 4 is academic writing. Academic writing, where you would be asked what is a thesis statement, what is the central idea of the passage, how many ideas does this passage have, what are the cohesion and coherence markers, what is the kind of introduction and conclusion that you can, what is the role of introduction and conclusion, etc. So if you notice your timetable to some extent, today I was going to be looking at the first part of the first phonology that you would have. And that's what I will focus my attention on. But what I have done is I have already put in all the points that I will be covering in the next few lectures on the slides. So you are welcome to go and see them at any point in time. That's because my system is not working too well. So I will have to, have pre-prepared slides and work with those basically. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so what we are going to do is work with this first part, which is phonology. And what you have in also in the drive, if you would have, is a phonetics chart with a sample answer key is also given, like in earlier times. I think you all were aware with the drive, right? Please feel free to unmute and ask questions at any point in time, okay? These are important aspects, and so it would be useful to clear your doubts at any point in time. So the drive link would have Peter Roth's phonetics handout. It would also have a sample answer key for the question. So I think you can look through them and figure out how that is going. There are certain other references. For instance, you can look up Oxford's Learner Dictionary, or Oxford Learners Dictionaries is a wonderful place to go in to understand how RP is done. So what we are focusing on, and there are many kinds of Englishes, is we are focusing on the British English, and we are focusing on how British English is spoken. And the way that I generally end up is, this is what Peter Roach gives. And the kind of analysis that is done is basically whether you voice it or unvoice it. So I'm going to start with here and then move back and forth to some extent. So first things first, we have two differentiations in language. In most all languages, we call them consonant sounds and we call them vowel sounds. So can anyone tell me what is the difference between consonant sounds and vowel sounds? All languages have them. What I have shown on the screen, what I am showing on the screen is consonant sounds that can help you guess.
Would that be consonant sounds can be voiced or voiceless? And vowels
This basically
are also always voiced. Is that it?
You're right that vowels are voiced, but consonant sounds are basically, vowels are basically your matras, right? Like your oo, e, etc. All languages have vowel sounds. They're just that the number of vowel sounds may vary. So for instance, you may only have a choti e in some languages. You may only have a badi e in other languages. For instance, in Hindi, we have this thing called I, anak, eh, but you don't really have an equivalent in terms of English. Right? In terms of sounds, we are not talking of the letters, we're talking of the sounds. So you may have certain rules like your which is a sound that would come through in Hindi again, which would not be there necessarily in English. Similarly, in English, in vowel sounds, we don't have an O sound in English. We'll come to those elements, but vowels are basically something that is fluid, mellifluous. It is not really focused on any part of your tongue or touching a part of your mouth in that sense. Consonant sounds require and are focused on your breath control. Consonant sounds are actually a lot about breath control as opposed to vowel sounds. Vowel sounds are not as much about breath control as consonant sounds. And the best way to explain this to you is to ask you if you ever remember anyone stuttering on an e, ina versus a kiran. Any stutterer will never ever be stuttering on the vowel sounds. They don't stammer on the vowel sounds. You stammer on the consonant sounds.
Is that because on the vowels we open our mouth and speak, whereas in consonants there is a different positioning of tongue and the touching of lips and of teeth and all that stuff?
Yes, absolutely. And and it's also the breath control. Because in E or or oo, think about it, when you have a blocked nose, you're still able to make these sounds. But if you had to make a m sound when you have a blocked nose, it's so much more difficult. You try blocking your nose and saying more, or you try blocking your nose and say oo, e, everything. You will be able to get it. So that's an important point to keep in mind in terms of phonology of the vowel sounds and the consonant sounds. Again, consonant sounds are of different kinds, and different languages have different consonants. English has a certain level of consonants which other languages don't. Right? So I'm going to go back and forth between this slide and this slide. All right. So there is slide 2, which has something written in terms of a chart, and another which is the type of, which is a printed chart. What you can see on the column names is the place of articulation. What do you mean by place of articulation is, let's look at bilabial, right? Bilabial is two lips. Labia is lips, bi is two. So bilabial. So if you have to say per, we always say per with our two lips. We also say mer with the lips. We say bur with lips, right? Now, English only has per as in pat and bur as in bat. It does not have bh as in bhat. It does not have that, right? It does not have the bh sound with a b and an aspiration, which is your b ki matra, right? It is the batak ka b, the first one, bat, right? That's important to keep in mind in terms of your English. And that's why I'm going to keep going back and forth. If you notice the first column, bilabial, the first aspect is pat, bat, mat. And another thing that is there only in English, it is not there in Hindi, is world. Because in Hindi, the way you would say world would be the way that Amitabh Bachchan was saying it in Bunty and Bubbly. Ye world hai na, world, which is the ver sound. In Hindi, we don't have the whirl, whirlpool, what, whir sound. We don't have that. But in English, you do. So do you get the half whir sound that comes in? If you were trying to say whir, then you would only be rounding your lips a little bit, and you would be using them to come push together to say world, world. All right. So that is the one that you have for bilabial. The other one that you have is in terms of, and are there differences in how we say them? So let's talk about how we say them. Yes, go ahead. Please ask.
When you said W, the thing that you said, just 1 second, you just told us that world. So you are puckering your lips together, so it's definitely bilabial. But when you are saying words like
waist is also the same thing.
It's still going to be bilabial.
Yeah. You don't say, okay, let's take up the closest one, which is b, right? Van.
When you
say van. Waist, say van. Van. Now, where is your lip? Where is your teeth?
They're touching each other. The upper tooth is touching the lower lip.
Correct. Now, do you say waist like that?
Waist.
Do you say waist like you say van? Do you say vast? Now say vast, and now say waist.
Vast.
Correct. You get the difference, right? Yeah.
Ma'am, I'll intervene.
That's a very good question.
I'll intervene here.
I was listening
please. To Professor Punjabi's lecture. Was that correct? It was your
He's a linguist
but
as
she
well.
was taking the lecture. So she says, kiss your W and bite your V. So when we are saying the W as in V,
yes,
that is the when we are making like the kissing, it comes like rounded. And when we are saying V, it is we are biting. So keep that in mind, Priyanka. That will
let me just write it down.
That's a lovely one, isn't it?
I got it from that video I saw.
Kiss the W and bite the V.
Yeah, bite your V. Kiss your W and bite your V.
Yeah, I like it.
It is, right? Because you will be saying vast or van. You are actually biting your lip, isn't it?
Ma'am, one more thing. We are saying that now when I say the word tooth,
Yeah.
am I not also puckering my lips to say the word tooth?
No, that's not the only one. So we'll come back to that t and the th a bit later, but you're not puckering your lips necessarily for it. T. Now see where your tongue is when you're saying t. So we'll come to that. All right. So yeah, Aarti looks at so then this point of your W, when you're looking at it, you also have to think about the manner of articulation. So how are you saying those words? So most of the time, again, when you are trying to think about people who are stuttering or stammering, they are not going to be stammering on world. They're not going to be saying, whoa, 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 world. They won't, because the flow of air is pretty much stable for a lot of the approximant, the lateral approximant, and the nasal sounds. But we'll come back to the manner of articulation in a little bit while. What we will do is we will first look at the place of articulation and then come back into the manner of articulation as well. So one is the place of articulation is two lips together is bilabial. Labiodental is the lip and the upper teeth, the lower lip and the upper teeth. So when you are saying fat as in p, or you're saying ban as in b, what is happening is that your upper teeth is touching your lower lip, which is where this thing very famously comes from. Kiss your w and bite your v. Yeah. And because you're not puckering your lips when you're saying van or waist, vast, not waist, but vast. You are not really puckering your lips when you are saying raven, ben in that sense, right? So those are the elements that you're talking about for labiodental. Now, I would like you all to think about what is the difference between voiced and unvoiced or voiceless. Even as we are, yes, go ahead.
Sorry to trouble you, but even when you're saying the word voice, you are not literally biting the upper tooth to the lower.
You are not biting. You don't have to bite. But do you say voice? Yeah, you don't have to. Voice. Your upper teeth does come to your lower lip.
If we say the word violent.
So say violent, say voil, yeah. Say what, say what, say why, and then say voice.
Voice.
And now look at where your lip is. No, look at where your teeth is.
No, there is difference.
When you say why, when you say what, and when you say voice, where your teeth is. Don't please look at your lips only. Look at where your teeth is.
It is touching the lower lip.
It is going towards your lower lip. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, unless you exaggerate sounds, you're not really going to be touching and biting, literally biting the lip and the tongue or anything.
No, I mean to say, when I say voice, I am not literally in the sense my upper tooth is not touching my lower lip when I say voice.
But is it moving towards your lower lip?
It is moving, but it is not like how when I say van, I know for sure that the sound is coming.
But that would also be because your voice, if you now exaggerate it and say, because you will be moving from ver to aw, where automatically your lips are also puckering at that time because of the aw sound. So voice, when you're saying, now can you make, okay, let me ask it this other way around. When you say what, and if you touch your teeth to the lip, will the sound remain the same?
Not necessarily, it will change.
When I say what, then it becomes what. It doesn't become what. Okay. If I touch it. Now try doing it with voice. Your upper teeth to touch your lower lip. Does the sound change?
It becomes
doesn't.
voice. It becomes
no voice. Voice. You have to slow it down.
Voice.
Yeah, it won't change. So it is not going to be exact. It is not going to be accurate in that sense that you will be using it as word world will come or ban will come, because that's very clean elements that are going to come for you. But overall, you will have to look at it and say, is it more with a W sound or is it more with the verse sound? Is it more in terms of a verse sound or not? Right? So you will have to figure those out over a period of time. And of course, the way we use it in different languages is also very different. But to go back to one element that I wanted you all to also pay attention, what will be the difference when you say per and when you say ma? Now, ma is nasal, which means that part of your breath is coming out of your nose. That is why it is ma. Now, if you hold your nose and try saying ma, hold your nose and say ma, it's not going to sound ma. It is not going to sound ma to others. It may sound a lot more ma to you, but it's not going to sound ma to others, because you need the air to flow through your nose for it to be ma sound. Now, that's okay, that you still get that there is a nasal tone to ma. You still get that wa is more like a semi-vowel. It's almost a fluid space. There is no touching of any mouth, lips, anything really. And it seems to flow more into the vowel range than into the consonant range. But per and bh are from almost the same space. When you say per and you say bh, your lips are touching each other. There is a stop of air, and then there is an expulsion of air. If you hold your hand in front of your mouth and you are saying per, bh, you will find that there is an expulsion of air hitting your hand. But what is the difference between per and bh is one way, of course, you is touching, is expelled on your hand. The other way around is hold your hand on your chest and try saying per and try saying bh, and see where your force of breath, force of air is, which word is it coming from? Per, bh.
Bh.
Bh is coming with a force.
Bh comes more. And so when you do that, that is when only in the ones which are voiceless or unvoiced, I mean, different books will give you different names, but only in the two sounds, whenever they are in the same cell, only the ones which are, highlighted or on the left side primarily are the ones which are voiceless or unvoiced, in the sense that you don't expel as much air saying them as you do when you are saying bh. So per, bh. Now, what is interesting is that it becomes very important to notice this with fur and v, because generally we would think that fur is the one which will expel more air, but that's not the case. Fur versus v, you will find that v expels more air than fur. This is important because if you ever have a word which is, and I'm going to do this as a screen write if I can. Yes, I can. So if you ever write off, then the way that we write off is this. The way that it is pronounced is this. I hope it was kind of clear, and you can see this is how you would write off. Okay, in transcription, it would be the v sound, because you will pronounce it, you will emphasize it, and that is a very important idea to bring in. And that entire aspect is very important to keep in mind, that the v is emphasized, and each time that you have words like fur, which end in fur, which have to be pronounced, the way that the transcription runs is with the v sound, the v transcript. because it is the emphasized transcript. It's the emphasis of the sound. That is very counterintuitive because that's not how we think of transcribing, especially because we come from Hindi, or we have a lot of other languages other than Tamil. Most of the other languages, the phonology of the language, the phonetics of the language, and the script of the language kind of match each other. Other than some words like bahut, which is of course written as bahut, but is pronounced as bahut, right? I mean, other than those very few ones, most of the time we pronounce the same way that we write. But that's not the case in English all the time. So you would have to keep those aspects in mind. So the voiced versus voiceless, or the unvoiced, either of the two words that you would have, is just that when there are these sounds of p versus bh, f, w, that is when you are saying that the f sound is unvoiced or voiceless, and p sound is voiceless in that sense.
Ma'am,
Okay.
when you're saying the word backpack,
Yes.
bh is voiced and per is voiceless. In that
Not voiceless, as in you won't expel air as
yes,
much.
Yes, I understood that. But so then the word backpack, so it's the combination of both then, right?
Yeah. So
the combination words are also allowed.
Of course.
Okay.
Sounds are basically, you could have
because there is basically a stop in the middle, back and then pack.
No, but you can have bap re bap, no?
Yeah.
So it remains the same. Even in Hindi or English, it would still be the pa, bha, ba, pa, whatever. It would still be that, isn't it?
Saying bap re bap, the starting is always going to be voiced.
No, not necessarily. Pub.
Pub, yeah.
It's not necessarily. Pa, bha.
Yeah.
So not necessary.
So if you have
nothing says that it has to be voiced, it has to begin.
So if you have to
that you have to figure out in terms of transcript of the sound.
So if we had to write this down, wouldn't we write the pa and then the bha?
Why would you do that? It is about the pronunciation. You would be writing it in this manner. Let me give you an example of how you will write. So you would be writing, if this is a poem given to you, you are going to be writing it as the sound comes in. That's how you will be doing it. So I cannot go to school today would be written as I cannot go to school today in the as on the side that is there. That is how it will be there. So we'll come to this, but this is how it is going to be written. It's going to be about I have a car. And so you have your I have a car. That's how you will be writing it. So it's nothing to do with which sound comes first and which sound comes second. It's about the fact that you're understanding right now is the placement of sound. Where is the sound emerging from in terms of your mouth? How are you expelling air in terms of the manner of articulation? And how much force and thrust are you giving to that force of expulsion of air when there are sounds where you may not really voice them as much? When you say voice, it's just about breath control. How much of expulsion of air is there in them or not? Right? So how much of force are you putting in? So if I have a lot of burr sounds, Baba Black Sheep had a, Baba Black Sheep had 3 bags full or anything. If there's a lot of burr sound, it sounds more, it is a lot more emphatic. Sorry? Someone was saying something?
No, ma'am, I think that was some background noise.
Okay, so it's a lot more emphatic when you say Baba Black Sheep, as if you had said Papa Papa compared to Baba Baba. It's just about how much of emphasis, how much of loudness, how much of expulsion you want to give to that sound. So yes, we will come back to that analysis a bit later. But yes, good questions to keep in mind and keep asking. So bilabial, labiodental. Now you come to another part, which is dental. Now dental is about your tongue touching the teeth. So the is like your think, thesis, teeth. The is like the, than, throbbing. The, right? So that's how it gets written, right? The. The Hindi equivalent is just for your reference. It is not exactly the same each time. For instance, the way we say fat and the fur that we talk about and fool ka fur is not the same fat, but it is the closest equivalent, right? So the and the are the closest equivalents in terms of Hindi, where you can think about think and then the. And then again, you try and say they both come from the same place. Your tongue is touching the back of your upper teeth. The, think, the.
Ma'am.
Yes, go ahead. Please ask your question.
Yeah, ma'am, actually, this is kind of a, I'm digressing. Like when we say think, it sounds Hindi. Like now you're referencing Hindi for this, right? Even the for that matter. But when when these words are pronounced by in UK accent, for example, they do not sound the same. Like they are saying thought, but it sounds a lot like fought, So how does this,
Thought. Yeah, so no, this is the same as thought as what they will say also.
Yeah. Okay, because most of the times when we say that someone has a heavy accent, so for us it's very easy to reference these to Hindi. But then like people who don't know that language, for them it's like who kind of rely on their ears. These words sound differently pronounced when someone from other like not from India pronounces them. So that's my question.
But even
like
in
how
English, think is going to be think only. How is it different in UK English?
No,
I'm not
saying
talking about someone from Liverpool. Okay, now there are accents even across UK. So if someone is from Liverpool, for instance, is definitely not going to pronounce it in the Queen's English. I am talking of the Queen's English, which is received pronunciation. That is the same pronunciation. You could have someone from reading who pronounces the word differently, or from Liverpool who doesn't say love, who says love. Of course you could have it. So what? That's a point.
No, my question was always that we are accused of not having the right kind of pronunciation, that when we say it, it's an accent, like the other way around, that way.
No, accent and pronunciations are two different things.
All right.
Accent is basically, I don't know if you watched a Trevor Noah show, but accent is that's a good way of understanding accents. Accent is how we emphasize a certain sound. So let me put it this way. The Malayali accent, which we always will talk about, will say problem. Okay. Now, what does it mean? Does it mean that they don't have a purr in their language? It does. Of course, they have a purr in the language. But the way they emphasize and the way they expel air with problem is that it sounds, the purr sounds burr, because I have expelled air that way. So it is about, accent is about the way that I'm emphasizing certain sounds. I'm not emphasizing certain sounds because my own cultural sounds are mapped in that way, right? So for instance, when you say van, all right, there are certain people, certain communities which won't say no, because in their own community, no does not exist. They may say van because no exists for them. Do you get it?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's not just the pronunciation. So there is one aspect of pronunciation. The other aspect is how do I pronounce, not how do I pronounce, but how do I emphasize certain sounds versus other sounds. So for instance, the Indian pronunciation generally is like, we will say April. R will be pronounced in that. Because अगर र है तो फिर र को साइलेंट क्यों रखा, So, but when you
Yeah,
hear
ma'am.
others say it, the r is very soft. It is April. And the r hardly is heard for you if you are listening to a proper British accent. You won't have anyone in Britain saying, using the Queen's language saying April. You know, it's not that way, because they will not pronounce the r, they won't roll the r the way that we do, because we roll our r's a lot more. So the point is about how you are emphasizing a sound. That's where the accent comes from. How much of breath you are expelling on a sound. That's where the accent comes from. How do you pronounce that sound, but in a subtly different manner across the world? This is dependent on your breath control, the placement of your tongue. You know, the rolling of the r is basically the placement of your tongue. How close your tongue goes and touches that point, and how it doesn't touch the point. It just seems to go near the point and come back. All of that is dependent on your own cultural sounds. And so your Bihari Hindi, forget the English, even Hindi, isn't the Hindi accent different when South Indians speak it, when East Indians speak it, when West Indians speak it, when Central Indians speak it? Aren't they different? Pronunciation to wahi rehta hai.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Lekin pronunciation is not the same as the accent. So when, you know, when Bengalis say ma, there is this, you know, there is a lyricism in that that comes, which is not there in the other sounds of ma that you will get around India. And the pronunciation remains the same, but how long I extend the sound, how I, you know, layer the sound in terms of pitch, how I expel air to emphasize a sound or de-emphasize a sound, that will create that accent. It's not pronunciation alone.
Ma'am, but that isn't that very crucial in understanding
No.
the phonetics?
No. As in, is it understanding phonetics? Yes. In speaking a language, no. You can speak any way you want, and that's fine. Pronunciation is the least important in any language speaking course.
Okay.
Because I would like to know how you're going to be mapping Australian English, American English, Canadian English, British English, the varieties of British English, by the way, Indian Englishes, all of these different Englishes. Because even in America, the way you are saying darling, okay, if you say darling in New York, you would say darling. Okay, it is the darling. And if you're going to Utah or Texas, and the way you would say darling would be darling. And the r is hardly pronounced. The n is not there. It just seems to end with a n sound. And this is just in US. And then in Britain, as I said, you could, the way that Liverpool or anyone would say bus would be bus. They don't say bus, they say bus. So what does it matter?
Got it, ma'am.
So I'm not someone who looks at why are we doing phonology? We're doing phonology to understand how sounds can have certain impact on us. So let's look back on this other element, right? If you have you're all, I think, conversant with Marathi and Hindi, since you are from the Maharashtra belt. Does Marathi sound a lot harsher than Hindi?
Hello?
Yes, it does.
Why?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you think it does?
Maybe the way they talk in is much more louder. Their pronunciations are I don't know, as a matter of fact.
So I'll give you one example and you will get it. Vitthal versus Vitthal. In Hindi, you don't say Vitthal as much as you would say in Marathi. Marathi, it is Vitthal. In Hindi, you would more likely say the softer th, Vitthal. You would say pani versus pani. Okay, the one who is talking, who is on some other sound, I don't know who it is. Can you please mute yourself? I don't know which one it is. Yes. If there is background noise, yeah. Because phonology, I can't have with background noise. I'm sorry. So if you would have
apologies.
No worries. So I'm just saying this lecture I can't, otherwise it's okay. But this one, I don't know which other sound will come. So Vitthal, Pani, Na. The moment you are using these sounds which are more expelled, okay, Arabic sounds a lot more harsher than Hindi does, because there is a lot of kh, the aspirated sound. If you say khargosh versus kabutar or no, or kawa, okay, khargosh sounds a lot more harsher because you would be aspirating, you would be expelling more air for the kh than for the k. Even in Hindi. And Arabic has a lot of aspirated sounds. So you're expelling a lot of air. Now, what happens when you expel a lot of air is that there is a force. That force on that person is, so the speaker feels the air and the pressure coming at their ear in a way. It is just very subtle mechanics that seem to be that someone is attacking you. So it just sounds more harsher. And I have been accused of it as a Tamilan, where my friends will say it always sounds like you are fighting, and I'm like, no, my language it's just the language. We will have a lot of consonant sounds which will have a lot of expulsion of breath, and that expulsion of air is just going to sound a lot harsher because many of the words use those harsher sounds. That's it. It's not that the word is difficult or anything of that sort. In fact, there is another thing that is very interesting. Arabic and a lot of desert languages don't have many vowel sounds. Not that they don't have vowel sounds, but in their words, they will not use too many vowel sounds. Can you think why? Desert languages do not use too many vowel sounds in their words. They have the sounds, but they don't always have so many vowelic sounds.
Ma'am, is it to do with the sandstorms that they can be heard when the sandstorms are going on?
So what happens if you open your mouth a lot?
It's very dry.
Yeah.
So they have to.
And vowel sounds require you to open your mouth, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very simple thing. They just developed a language in the way that they developed the language was in reaction to the kind of sounds that they could make. So you will go to Rajasthan and you can try doing this experiment with the languages that you know. Rajasthani Boli, the Khadi Boli that you can get in the Rajasthani Boli is not going to have as many vowel sounds as Gujarati will have. Just a simple thing. They are two neighboring states. And even in Gujarat, when you go towards Kutch, you will have fewer vowel sounds in the use of their everyday words, as opposed to more towards the coastal region. Very simple aspects, because they wanted to conserve every drop of moisture in their body that they could. And so their language ensured that they created words which would have more consonant sounds than vowel sounds, which would actually expel less moisture, which would give off less moisture. It's a very interesting and fascinating field. Sorry? Who is this now?
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, I have a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am, the slide that is being shown here, on which it says dental, wherein you've mentioned teeth. So earlier you said that our tongue would be touching the upper teeth, right? So the word teeth, TH has been underlined.
Yes,
T has
that
been
is the
So so when we are saying teeth, even the is being, it's touching the teeth on the top. So
the does not. The teeth is different. Try saying teeth Does your tongue touch the same place as think?
I mean, touching a bit of the palate.
So now say, okay, now say think, and now say to. Is your tongue moving differently?
Two. Yes.
Yeah, your tongue is above, isn't it?
Yes,
And
yes.
so that is the two of the teeth, the t of the teeth. The th of the teeth is the last part. That is the teeth, teeth, eat,
Okay.
eat.
So, ma'am,
Okay.
TWO2 belongs to the theta.
No,
That is
no,
no.
no, 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 no. The sound, th, think,
Think.
pieces,
Pieces.
th,
This.
not this. This is it this?
This.
It is not this. It is
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
The.
So it'll
This.
one. This will go to
the lower one. The, than, throbbing. Right? So dental is got these two sounds where your teeth are, when the tongue is touching the back of your teeth. What you have is the next one, which is the alveolar, where you are touching. Now, if you go at the back of your mouth, just above your upper teeth, there is a ridge, there is a hard ridge that is there. That's called the alveolar ridge. And there are multiple sounds that we make there. In fact, that's a very busy place. We have a lot of sounds coming from there. Okay, so the first one is t, the t of two, the right t, teeth, t, d of drum, of dumb, d, right?
even drum
Try
for that
saying
matter
it.
will come from the.
Yeah, d, correct. Drum, dumb, all of it, d, right? Bad, d, right? So that. The other one that comes from the same area is n. N as in no, not the, so the way that you would have to say, because there are multiple n's. I can say no, 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 no. If you just roll your tongue back from all parts of your thing, you just touch the tip of your teeth and go backwards, you can have different positions, different n's. No, 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 no. Okay. But the one that is English no, is the one that is where the tongue is touching the alveolar ridge. Say no, say to, say do, say no. You get it?
Even
Lose.
tongue for that matter. Tongue, even the
Tongue, yeah. Anything. It's not about the word. Please stop looking at the word. Look at the sound. Yeah.
Even tribe.
Right?
Even trouble.
Tribe. Yes. Sound. Anything that has ter in it. So if you start doing it at a sound level, that is when it will be easy. Do not do it at a word level. I'm just giving you the words for the reference, but the sound has to be what you look at.
Now,
so
when you say the word thread,
thread is different.
You'll go to the
thread. Thread is not it is th.
So will
thread.
It one or the other one? Thread.
How will you say it?
Thread.
How will you write it in Hindi?
Here th sound comes out na in thread.
Correct, exactly.
So now it will be in the dental, right? The thread.
Yeah.
But where in the dental? As in there were.
But is it thread, or is it the, or is it as in think? Thread.
This thing.
So you have to think of the sound. You are going about this the worst possible way to understand the phonetics, by trying, not a bad exercise to do, but you are trying to map words to the phonetics, where I am asking you to map the phonetic to the word. Very different ways of doing it. You will have to think the sound, not the spelling. That is the first thing you have to disassociate.
So this is the theta thread.
Yes, this is the theta, think, thesis, that's thread. Isn't it the same? Isn't it the th sound? I mean, stop looking at the word. Start saying, is it the th sound? Right. That's all that you have to think about.
Even these.
Okay.
Ma'am,
I'm not going to give you exercises for this. You can look up on the dictionary. I am
ma'am,
not going to do that because it's a very bad way of learning this. It is, you will have to map the sound and not the word, not, you're almost trying to learn this like spelling of the phonetic spelling of the word, which is a very wrong way of doing it. You have to know just the sound letters and then map the sounds to the sound schema. You have to disassociate spelling from this. That is the most important part. And it will take time. I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong, but I'm saying that it will interrupt the way that everyone has to start thinking about the sound schema. That is important. Okay, so yes, go ahead.
ma'am, the difference between t and th. Th comes under dental one, th, and t comes under alveolar. Am I right?
Yes, but my simple thing is, why are you by-hearting it like that when you can do it with your mouth? Th is your tongue touching the back of your teeth.
Okay.
Dental. Th. Try saying think, right? Or anything. Th. And now say t, as in to, do. Where is your tongue? It is touching the alveolar ridge.
Yes, ma'am.
My point is, if you start by hearting the chart, which is a fine thing, you can, I'm fine if you by heart the chart, whatever. But in terms of learning, it's much easier if you can just look at how the sound is emerging. That's much easier to do than to by heart this chart. Of course, you are welcome to do either. But I am saying from my teaching perspective, I will still go
We are rounding our lips.
sound.
While pronouncing the letter, we are rounding our lips in alveolar.
Your lip position does not matter, because what you will happen is, if you're saying to, then maybe what you will be remembering is that for the t, you're not rounding your lips.
Yes,
if you just have to say t, you're not rounding your lips. Because you're saying to, and your mouth is going from t to oo sound, therefore your lips are rounded. So it's not that the t is having rounded lips. You could say t, and there is no lip rounding in it.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Which is why I want you to take the sounds individually and not as words. I am only giving you the words as reference for the sound, not for you to learn the sound like that, right? And it's fine, but think about the fact that you would have a to and you would have a t, and there is nothing of a lip rounding in t at all in that sense, right? Okay. So t, d, n also comes from the same place, no. So also comes from the same place.
So the word teeth, which we are saying, that it's going to begin with the t, normal t, and the t that we emphasize on in the end changes from the other theta, right? So the starting sound is so it is the alveolar sound.
Yeah. So if I have to do teeth, it will be t. Yes. Then there is a vowel sound, and then there is this. This is how it will be.
Okay.
Yeah, this is how it will be.
So T theta then.
Yes. But that's the point. The point was that all the sounds, if I gave all the sounds from which are at the beginning, then you will start thinking that these are the sounds that only come in the beginning of a word, which is not true. It can come anywhere. It is about the sound. Right? So t, d, n, s. So as in so. So as in saw. Right? All of it is also your tongue touching the same alveolar ridge. The same is true for zoo.
Even superb. When we say superb.
Any sir sound. Any sir sound. Anywhere. Receive.
When you say sure, I am sure about it.
No, that is different. That is not the same sound. That is not sir sound. Sure is not sir. So sir is receive. Receive is sir, right? So that is sir sound. Z, zoo, l, late, lu, I'm trying to just keep the oo sound going. But late. So what you would have out here is you are looking at the alveolar sound where you will have t as in tan, did, late, no, sir, sit, zoo, or even for that matter, his, because you would perhaps pronounce the z. And that's what I was talking about when I said that you would have to look at the fact that even with sir and z, what you are going to be doing is that the sir sound is not as emphasized. When you say sir, you're not expelling as much air as when you say z. So his book. So it becomes a z sound rather than the sir sound. So his, that is when you would be saying his z sound comes in. So that is how you would have to think about, and that is where it becomes problematic for a lot of people, because you're not accustomed to looking at the spelling and thinking it should be the z sound. But it is the z sound because it is expelling air and it is emphasizing that sound, and therefore it sounds more like a z than a sir.
When
Am I
we say
making
zucchini,
sense?
when we say zucchini,
Zoo.
same sound.
Ma'am,
Zucchini.
even in busy, right?
Busy, z. It
Yeah,
is
Z,
not,
Z, yeah.
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 So not, so as pointed out, the sir sound, you use the word receive purposely, right? Receive or receipt. It is C actually, but obviously we don't pronounce it as C, do we? We pronounce it as sir. So that is the sir sound.
Even because.
So that is how you will have to think of. Yeah.
Because.
Because is sir, no? Because. It depends on how, it depends on whether you're using American pronunciation when it becomes because.
But when you
American
say pause,
pronunciation is
when we say pause.
Pause. It is not pause. It is pause.
Okay.
So it again will depend on whether you're using American pronunciation or British pronunciation. British pronunciation is pause because, the cause of this is, so it is sir. But the way that Americans pronounce it, there is more emphasis. So that is why you have a because. And that is where you have the abbreviation, which is B''COZ, that comes from America.
Because as
right?
per the book,
So,
when they are saying because Z is coming, the Z sound and the S sound.
Yes. So all of these come from the alveolar ridge, where the tongue touches the alveolar ridge. But they all also have different manners of articulation where you are expelling air differently. With t, with d, you will find that the tongue goes and absolutely touches the alveolar ridge for two. And for sir, the tongue, does it touch the alveolar ridge so sharply? No. That is a fricative, where there is more friction. And so if you notice, a lot of children really struggle to say sir and z, etc., because they don't know ki wo touch karna hai ki nahi karna hai. Imagine, as children, we were learning how to place our tongue to pronounce all these wonderful words without anyone telling us that your tongue movement has to be different. And they struggle so hard to say the, or to say fa, or to say sir, because it goes near, but it should not absolutely go and block it. So it's a friction that is to be created. How much of friction has to be created? This is so difficult, and they learned this as a motor skill, right? And so we all learned. So we are all great people, all right, as children. So it's the same thing. So the no, of course it touches, but the air passage is through the nose, partly through the nose. And with l is like a lateral approximant, where you actually can glide. It just glides. The air glides when we say l. And it always, so both approximant and lateral approximants are more treated like semi-vowels. The focus is more on the vowel that comes with them than on the word itself, lullaby or anything like that. Even then, the focus is more on the vowel sound. It's almost gliding. It gives it a very mellifluous musical quality, which is very smooth flowing. So lateral is basically that, late, right? So what happens with alveolar or with plosives, like these are plosives, p, bh, t, d, where there is a blockage of air, there is a stop of air because the two parts of the mouth touch each other, and then there is a release. And that release, with that release comes the expulsion of air. So if you have a lot of water in your mouth, or if you are Satish Shah in what is that film of Shah Rukh's, Main Hoon Na, okay, then with a lot of spit in your mouth, you will be the one showering people with your words of wisdom and your spit as well, right? This is why students avoid sitting on the first bench. This is why Zoom classrooms are great, because I can't make out whether people are escaping me for what reason. So that is where that comes in terms of plosive. Why does it happen? It happens generally only for plosive sounds, because what happens at that time is in your mouth, as these two go and pause, right? They meet each other, you stop swallowing. You are basically, your emphasis is on closing the parts of the mouth coming together. And then with that sudden explosion of air, there's also all the water, that is saliva, that is accumulated, that also spits out. That is what happens with plosives and fricatives to some extent. Fricatives less, plosives more. So it's important to keep in mind also these elements. We do this in speech therapy quite a bit, where we are saying, okay, so this is how it happens. If you have a lot of saliva, the way to do it is to ensure that you keep swallowing. And so you break and slow down your pace of speech so that you're swallowing a lot as you are speaking. Or as a speech writer, you will try and avoid those words for them. So Biden and people who can stammer a lot, you would try and either give them breaks before the plosives and the fricatives, because there is a slight blockage of air when you are saying f, or you're saying t, or p, or bh. There is a slight blockage of air. Now, the moment the rhythm of air is disturbed, they start stuttering, which is why when they sing, they don't stutter. No one who stutters is stuttering while they are singing, because in singing, the flow of air is never obstructed. So it is about the fact that the speech will obstruct the flow of air and you will start stuttering. So what you do is then you replace the words. Why do you have to have a word with fan? You could have had a word that would have perhaps given the same thing by saying circulation or something like that. You know, you could change it around and figure it as what they are more comfortable in speaking. This is what speech writers also do for stammerers and other actors in that sense. So alveolar is a very bilabial, labiodental, dental, alveolar. Alveolar is a very busy place. The other one is post-alveolar. And there are again 5 sounds, which is the next busiest place. Post-alveolar is just above that hard ridge. Just above that hard ridge is where you asked me whether sure will come in. So sure is sure, right? So if you notice, these are the sounds that come. So let me not go here. Let me go here. Post-alveolar, right? You would have shoe. Post-alveolar, sure. Pleasure, je. There is no equivalent sound really in Hindi for je. It is not jahaz ka z. It is not ja of jahaz. It is somewhere in between. Pleasure, pleasure, right? That je is not exactly an equivalent that you will find in Hindi. But you do have church, for instance, which is ch. Church is a mixture of the plosive t and the fricative sh. It is church. T, sh, t, sh, t, sh, t, sh, ch. That is how the church comes in. And jack, j, d, j, d, j, d, j, j, jack. That is how it comes in. And what are these sounds really trying to do is that what you have with them is, if you notice out here in post-alveolar, you will notice that this is a sound of affricate. Affricate, the only two sounds of affricate that you have is ch and j. And the affricate sound is a mixture of plosive and fricative. Plosive is the first one out here, which is the stop sounds. And fricative is the one which creates friction, where you may stammer, and you will notice that all of these words lead to a lot of stammering. Children don't pick up these sounds very quickly. They most likely make mistakes in pronouncing because they're so far, they find it so hard to stop air, release air. It's so difficult to think about not only placing your mouth, but now also figuring out breath control, all of it. So that is where the sound comes from. Another, which is a post-alveolar, is r. R as in rat, r as in row. The English r is the post-alveolar r. So try saying low and then try saying row. And you will notice that your tongue has gone back a bit from the low to the row. Did you get that? When you're trying to say, so that is the post-alveolar. Sorry, go ahead.
So when we say low and row, the tongue is being rolled much more behind when you're saying the row.
Yeah, that is the post-alveolar. And of course, in Hindi, or not just Hindi, in Indian languages, we have all kinds of l, all kinds of n, all kinds of r. For instance, I could have l, 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 right? The Marathi l is absent in the Hindi l. Hindi has only one l, but English has only one l. But you have many kinds of l's in Indian languages. L, 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 l. You also have many r's in Indian languages. You will have r, 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 r. All that I did is roll my tongue more and more and more. That's it. That's all that you do. But obviously, the r sound, if English, is the one that is on post-alveolar ridge. So when you say row, you are rolling your tongue back a bit more to the higher end, which is behind that ridge. And when you say low, you are touching that ridge. You're near that ridge. Your tongue doesn't actually touch that ridge, but it goes
when
near.
we are pronouncing row or low, we are still pronouncing the W at the end, right?
Of course.
We are low.
Not pronouncing the W. There's no W that is pronounced. No, low, O.
Low, O. So it ends at low here, right? The alveolar low. When I say fellow, he's my fellow.
No. You wouldn't. No. You don't have to pronounce every letter of the spelling.
Fellow. So that answer, when you're saying fellow or you're saying low, you are ending the pronunciation at O, basically.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Don't we do that with psychology where we don't pronounce the p?
Yes. So that becomes so in that matter. Psychology becomes the so, so.
Yes. So every letter of the word does not have to be pronounced is the first thing that English teaches. Spelling has no relationship with pronunciation is the first thing that English teaches.
So when I say the word low, can I say that, sometimes that there are words that end, like we have in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. So when I say fellow or when I say low, can I say that the l is ending the word?
No, it is not ending
I
the
cannot,
word because you are going on to having the you have a vowel sound after it. How is the word ending with l? No, of course not.
O sound is coming out.
When you have a vowel sound after it.
Yes.
Okay, so you have post-alveolar where you have 5 sounds. You have then palatal where there is only one sound. Palatal is the roof of your mouth. It's actually a very ticklish part. So the roof of your mouth is here. Now, your tip of your tongue is not the one that is going towards your yellow, for instance. What happens is your tongue subtly, over a period of time, it actually just moves up towards the roof of your mouth to say yellow. But you don't really are here does not really mean that your tongue, tip of your tongue touches the roof of your mouth. It's just that you roll your tongue a bit more, and overall the tongue is kind of elevated when you, and towards the palatal region of your mouth to say yellow. And please notice the way it is written. This is why Germans have Björnberg, and because it is J and that is pronounced as which is why you will write Yesu when you may pronounce Yesu for Jesus, right? So that's hallelujah, another one. This is exactly Christmas spirit, so I can go on with this. Hallelujah has J in it, but the way it is pronounced is Y, right? So this is where it comes from. Palatal Y sound is written as J, and that is the only sound that you have. It is an approximate because, again, these are sounds where the vowel is given a lot more mileage than the consonant sound itself. Then you have velar. Velar is at the back of your mouth, the soft region. Yes.
Ma'am, can you repeat once again palatal where your sound?
Your sound. Say your.
Yeah.
Say your.
Yeah.
What is happening to your mouth when you say your?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My tongue is touching the upper roof of the.
It doesn't really touch the upper roof, but it goes towards it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Anna?
Yeah.
It doesn't really touch it, but it goes towards the roof of the mouth.
Yeah.
Even when I say Yemen, yeah. Even European for that matter, your E is silent.
Europe.
Europe. So the sound of your is coming out. So even European here will be in this palatal,
which is why we say a European. We don't say an European.
Yes. So I was also, while I was doing this, I was thinking about the articles, and we say that why we do not use a and an with a particular article, because we say that some
just
words
because
are
of the
silent.
sound.
Yes, absolutely.
Not because they're silent. European, university, exactly. But it is not because you is silent. It's just that the pronunciation is different.
Pronunciation is, yes.
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes.
Ma'am, beauty, I read in the book, it is B-E-A-U-T-Y. Even E-A is pronounced as Y.
Yeah, you. No, how do you say beauty?
Beauty.
How do you say
Y
beauty? Now, of course,
beauty.
try writing it in Hindi.
Beauty.
B, ya, u ki matra, ta, I ki matra.
Beauty. So it is a year. Okay. Yeah, got it.
If ever you are confused, try transcribing it into Hindi or something.
Okay.
And then you will realize that
music.
E A hai to matlab zaruri nahi hai ki it has to be a vowel sound.
A vowel sound. Okay.
Yeah, like European, right? You will not write European as E. It is U. Ya, u ki matra. So that's a consonant sound. The ya sound. So yes, so beauty is B, U, T, T, E, right? So that is how it is. So now we come towards the end, which is the velar, not the end of the end, but the end in a sense. Velar is the soft part of your mouth of the consonants. And that is where you have your k, g, ng. These are the sounds that come. So k, g, k, g. Now try saying k and see where the sound is really coming from. And g, that's at the back of your mouth, right? And that is also plosive because there's a stoppage of air before you say k. And when you say g, there's a stoppage of air, and then there is a release of air. K, g, in that sense. And that is the plosive. It is a plosive because there is a complete stop of air and then an expulsion of air. It is velar in terms of place of articulation because it is from the back of your mouth, the soft region of your mouth. And the ng, which is sing, g, ng that comes in is the sound that you will have when you are adding the n and the ng together, right? So this is the velar, right? And we are not going to be looking at the well, were at this point in time, which is also coming from, there is another were that comes from the velar. We're just looking at the bilabial were. So there is the last one, which is glottal, which comes from the throat region. Thanks to Shah Rukh Khan, now we know there is glottal, epiglottis, and all kinds of things. But there is her, which comes from the glottal region, and that is hat. And that is also, yes, go ahead.
When I say the word queen and when I say the word quality.
Yeah.
I don't, queen, I pronounce it as queen.
Yes. And quality so, also you will pronounce with k.
Quality. So
which is why quality ice cream has k in it.
Yes, that is
because
why
they were playing on that word and they told you how to pronounce it by spelling it that way.
So this will all come under the K, quality queen.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I think I read it in the book to be as something else. It's as were.
Ma'am, I feel for queen.
No, it will be for different sounds, right? Queen will be your k. It starts with k. Yeah.
Okay. The first is
and then the ween or whatever. Yes, go ahead.
Ma'am, it will be k and w we will take na instead of u. It will be queen. So ver will be there.
Yeah, queen. Correct. You will have a queen. Ver.
K and
not. It is not queen. It is not ween. It is not ween.
Ween.
It is ween.
So it's ween. So that time we'll take the ver.
Queen.
This the second letter. So the e will be the ver, and then the no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
N.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just the consonants. There aren't too many, but it definitely makes a lot of difference. Please note that you all learned how to pronounce all of this without knowing any of this. So kudos, but this is how you will try and remember. And the next chart only gives the same thing, but I find this a more useful one than the second because it just tells you that plosive, fricative, affricate, nasal, lateral, approximant is the same thing basically that you're looking at, right? What we are now going to move on to is vowels. Vowels are again sounds that not all English language does not have all the vowel sounds. English language has select vowel sounds. We start by dividing our mouth into three parts. One which is front of the mouth, the other which is the center of your mouth, and the third which is the back of your mouth. So you will notice at the front, you have noticed at the top, I have written front, center, back. The other is also how you are closing your lips or opening your lips. So at the open lips, all of these are open lips. Half open, half close, I will get to. What do I mean by that? And close is when your lips are almost closed, like oo, e. There is a difference between e, which is more half closed, and e, where your lips are more spread and they are more tightly closed and the mouth is more closed. To get this point, these are important to keep in mind. Whenever it is front, you will find that your lips are spread. They are unrounded. For instance, e. For instance, For instance, had, When all the sounds that come from the back of your mouth, your lips are rounded. For instance, ooh, ah. But your lips are rounded, nevertheless, whenever you are making them. So everything from the back of your mouth, your lips are rounded. Everything from the front of your mouth, your lips are unrounded or spread. And everything from the center of your mouth, your lips are neutral. That's the difference. Now, someone would ask me what's the difference between half close and half open. The difference is just as much as you would have between, and this is my favorite one to ask always. Please look at these two words, which is at the center, okay? One is upon, one is up. If you notice these two, up has something where you're writing with an ulta V, right? That's a caret sign, up. And then you have another word which is upon. Do you say the same way? They are spelt as UP. Both of them are spelt as UP. Do you pronounce them the same way? Up, your mouth is open. Upon, your mouth is not. About, your mouth is not. Not as much. And you got the difference. Up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And that is one of the best ways to learn how there is a difference between open, half close in a sense. Half close is more towards close, but it is not really closed. Half open is more, it is open, but not really open. That's what it means. So they just used wrong words. They should have said, you know, fully 100% open, 75% open, 75% close, fully closed, something like that. But they didn't. They just used half open and half closed. So anyway, that's something that you will have to figure out, right? Now, these words, these are the kinds of sounds that you have in English. Can you tell me what is missing? I am just giving you these sounds. What is missing? So at the back, there is oo as in pool, oo as in pull, o as in caught, o as in caught, as in ask, as in car. Okay, there is front vowels, which is, again, I'm going from close to open. E as in heed, E as in hid, A as in set, A as in had, A. Okay. The center vowels, there are, again, I go now from open to close. As in up, bus. Okay. Thus, as in upon, about, across. As in third, first, bird. Basically, which is prolonged. There is a colon. Anytime there is a colon, it is the longer sound. You elongate the sound. So you will find that there is a colon after ah. There is a colon after aw for it to make aw. There is a colon after oo for it to be ooh. There is a colon after e, but the e also changes. I mean, there's a slight change that comes in. And so that is heed, e, right? So that is the elongated sound. But what sound is not there? These are the only vowel sounds in English language. Now I have a question for you. If you had to pronounce the word N-O, how will you pronounce it?
No.
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 Yeah, but is that the sound there?
O sound.
Is the sound here?
No.
No, ma'am.
No.
Anna? Yeah, there is no O sound. In
O sound is
vowels,
not
in
given
O sound is
English,
there.
there is no O sound. There is no O sound. Where is the O sound? Go ahead,
No,
tell me.
it is not given here.
Look at the back vowels and learn it more like a back, front, center, because it becomes much easier to do it that way. So the back vowels are oo, as in pool, oo, as in pull, o, as in caught, o, as in caught. There is a slight difference between the two. as in ask. As in car, because you are elongating the Then in center you have as in up, as in about, as in up, as in about, as in third, e, a. That's it. You don't have any other sound. So this takes us to something that we talk about. And again, this is just the same thing, which is a slightly cleaner table if you want to look at it. And again, gives slightly variance because I wanted to give you the left side, the way that it gets transcribed, right? Just to show you how it gets transcribed, but also give you a statement of how you could write it, right? You could write it in two different ways. To have sounds that are in Indian language, in English language, there is something called diphthongs. Diphthongs are basically two vowel sounds coming together, right? So what we talk about as back-oriented sounds, and in your book, you will find this different. They will be giving you something that's called back-orienting, which is slightly different from back-oriented, okay? Back-oriented means that any sound that begins at the back of your mouth is back-oriented. All the sounds that begin from the back vowels is back-oriented. All the vowel sounds that begin from the front vowels are front-oriented. And then there is one vowel sound which is center-oriented because it begins from the center vowel. Okay? So please keep this in mind because your exam will require you to make that change. We do consider it to be back-oriented when you are looking at au, out. Can you get that difference? Au. Cow. You also have something, so it is ending with an oo sound and it begins with an a sound.
The word shout, then again it comes
shout, ow.
Okay.
Yeah, ow. So
Okay,
you basically have to
comes
channel
in
your
the
inner
back.
Shakti Kapoor in you right now.
Ow.
Because it basically is that ow, in that time, right? So Govinda and Shakti Kapoor have to be channeled. But yes, shout, ow, basically the sound ow, right? You may also have e, where the sound from here, if you're looking at it, the movement from a to e, it moves, right? I'm trying to see if it can, yeah. So if you notice the arrows, you will find that a goes to e, a goes to u. So there are two sounds where a is the first one. One is a-u, the other is a-e, ai, mai, lai, tai, dai. All of these are a-e, right? There is no elongated sound. There is no colon that will come here. They'll all be the short vowels only. Another is boy or e, boy, toy, soy, right?
Word try.
Yes.
Then here I will come or not. Try.
I, child. Yes, I, child. Yes. Ch sound.
We don't.
Ch. Go ahead. Ask. Yes.
My.
Actually, we are not. Usually, when we pronounce them, so for example, B-U-Y is pronounced as by, as in rhyming to B-Y-E sometimes or I sometimes. So here we are supposed to pronounce them as by. So my question is, so should we? So what have we been pronouncing till date is wrong. Like buy, I buy the gift, that thing.
You're asking the wrong person, because I don't like pronunciation. I don't recommend pronunciations to be sacrosanct. Let me put it that way. It should not matter. The way that we pronounce and the way that the words evolve over a period of time as we keep using them is very different. The reason why we have a fur and ver. Do you know why we have a fur and ver? In labiodental, we have a fur and ver. The only reason we have a fur and ver is because as we grew, as we became from the original the orangutans and everything else that is there in our genes, as we evolved from the ape to the humans, slowly our incisors, which were longer, okay, became shorter and shorter, and they went inside our mouth. That's the only reason why we are able to say fur or ver. If your teeth were longer than your lips, you could not say fur. Try saying fur with your lip behind your teeth. You can't. You absolutely can't. So the fact that you have a labiodental sound at all in your language is an example of how humans have evolved genetically, and how there is a change in the way of their body structure and so on. So over a period of time, as we keep evolving, we will change our pronunciation. As languages go and become global, we will adopt other languages, ways of talking, of communicating. And so it's fine if you said bye as, we generally say bye as bye only, no? I don't know whether we say any other way for bye. What was the other example you gave? Bye is not a problem.
B-Y-E, bye.
B-U-Y is I-E, no?
Yeah, actually, what
But
I
both
meant
of them
is,
are I-E only, no? Bye is, both of them are I-E only.
because over
How
here
would you,
it says
how
the
differently will
capital
you say it?
I-E, and when we pronounce it's like small y. So what happened? Actually, it's
No,
not
we
more
don't
about
say the
pronunciation.
Y at all. Where are we saying the Y? No, 1 minute. Try writing it in Hindi. What do you say here?
Yeah, I would.
Yes, bye, yeah. In Hindi, we
Bye.
write
I would actually.
bye.
Bye.
Bye,
And
yeah.
ma'am, my this thing is not more of pronunciation, because what happens is when we are taking these when someone is pronouncing and you are supposed to transcribe it, that's what is that's when it gets confusing, like it's bye, but I
No,
have
when
always,
someone is
it's my mistake.
pronouncing it and you will write it down. No. Two different things. When someone is pronouncing it, you write it down as the way that they pronounce it. And then you figure out what the actual pronunciation is. Someone could mispronounce a word. That's okay. But when you say bye, for instance, I, how will you write I in Hindi? That's my problem. आप लोग जब देख रहे हैं, and this is my other issue, we can't take a English sound system and then transpose it onto Hindi and say, अरे हिंदी में ऐसा लिखते हैं. But Hindi में वो sound ही नहीं है. I sound is not there in Hindi. My, I, that sound is not there in Hindi. I sound is not there in Hindi. In Hindi, you will either have to do I, E, the E has to be there, or you will have to just leave it half, or you will do a year, which is what you are doing to make it a half, right? But that sound is not exact in Hindi. So my, by, so you're like year लिखते हैं, and year को हम पूरा pronounce नहीं करेंगे, my नहीं करेंगे. We will not do E, we will not say that, we will write here. But that's not how we actually, that's not the exact pronunciation that you will get in Hindi, because that word is not there in Hindi, that sound is not there in Hindi. So you're going to the closest variant of it that you can get, which is okay. But in English, you would say bye, my, tie, lie, fi, all of it in the way of I, where the I is I, that's it. And it is the E, but it is not fully pronounced. E, I, it goes fast. That's how it would be. So that's fine. That's okay. You would not have an bay, a. Where is the a sound? You have an a sound and you have an ainak sound. You don't have an a sound. But we will do the closest variant. A hai na, to a sound karenge. So be. But it's not be, na, in Hindi. It's not the exact be. It is bay. It is bait. It is a in that sense. So we will do the closest variant in our language. That's okay. And that's why I said pronunciation is not really about the elements of what you will speak in your language or in your colloquialism, but it's also about trying to understand the system of sounds that a particular language has, right? If I'm trying to do it, let me just go to another slide and show you. 1 second.
Ma'am, this
Yes.
PPT is not really included in the Google Drive. So, ma'am, please could you just share it on the
It
Google
is there
Drive?
in the Google Drive. It is there on the Google Drive.
Because I checked it, I couldn't find it.
I'll then reshare it, but it's definitely there in the Google Drive. Okay. So one that you will have with language is the fact that a language would have distinctiveness. That is what makes a language distinctive. Why is this on some other slide? Screen's shared. Another is that it has grammar. It has a certain kind of sound system, and it has a certain kind of writing system. So that's important in terms of how language is different from one to the other, which is why Chhattisgarhi is part of Hindi and it is not considered a separate language altogether. That's one part. The other is the fact that if I have to do a language, you have to understand that English is spoken by far by the most number of speakers. But actually, if you're looking at native speakers, Mandarin Chinese is the most spoken language of native speakers compared to English. English has but half of the world in a way speaks English. And if you're really looking at where English origin languages come from, English does not come from any one language source. English is actually about 350 languages contribute to 80% of English words. English words are not native English words. That's a very important aspect to understand, that when you're talking about pronunciation in English, you also have to understand that Japanese pronunciation will come in because there are Japanese words in English. You have to understand that Indian pronunciations will come in because Indian pronunciations are in English. You have to understand that German pronunciations will come because Germanic languages contribute about 26% to English language. That's what it occurs there. You would have French because 29% of English words come from French origin, or 29% of Latin words are basically what make up English. 29% of English words are from Latin. And so you have more and more words which come into English from different other languages. And so their pronunciation style, their pronunciation thematics will influence English. And it's one of the most inclusive languages in the world. It is just 20% native English. Everything else is foreign. It is that important. All of these words, what is common about all of these words?
There are foreign language words, not non-native English words, like cheetah, parda.
They're all from India.
Yes.
All are India.
They have
Kashmir
made their
is
way
India.
into English.
Tangle is India. Khaki is India. Chutney is India. Koyer is India. Okay, Koyer is India. Lilac is India. Jute is India. Bungalow is India. Blighty is India. Kamarband. Kamarband is basically the tuxedo where they are wearing that waist, around their waist, what they wear, the kamarband, as they call it, the kamarband. That is kamarband from India. Cherut, the cigar is from India. Ginny is from India. So many of these words, mongoose and all of these words are from India. And there are 900 and more words and counting every single time that they are coming from India. So that's a point. Yeah, sorry.
Bangle, khaki, all
Sorry?
these words. Same.
Yes, yes. All of these words are from India. Khaki is definitely an Indian contribution. Khaki color is something that is very native to India and then has gone around the world. But yes, khaki is an Indian word. You have something that's called, you can, the juggernaut, and you can look at, juggernaut is an Indian word. Juggernaut is basically Jagannath, say that word juggernaut has come. So that's an Indian word. So there are many, 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 many words. Yes. Bangle actually comes from Bangli. Bangli is a glass bangle in north. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Someone was saying something.
Ma'am, if we were having our MCQ type examination from the last time as it was held, so what type of questions come from these chapters that you have dealt with?
Okay. So what you can be asked is, the way that you can be asked is a question that says day. Okay, day. So I can give you a word like day, and I can ask you the day, or not day, day is too easy, but I can give you something like teeth or something like that and ask you, let's keep it as day. So D-A-Y, day, and ask you that this, which of these sounds is not there in the word alveolar, plosive, nasal, nasal and voiced. Okay. So then you will have to choose nasal, isn't it? That's one of the easier ones that I'm giving you. I'm giving it kind of away. Or I could be asking you that day has, it has a sound which is from the back-oriented vowels. It has sounds which use center-oriented vowels. It has sound which uses the front-oriented vowels. It has sound which uses the plosive and alveolar sound, or the post-alveolar sound, and then you will have to choose which ones don't apply, something of that sort. Do I explain the question type? Did I manage to explain the question type?
Yes, ma'am. But last time we had a lot of issues. They just gave the sentences, suppose, and clauses or phrases, and there was no question. Many. Suppose they said that the lady was walking on the street with a dog, and there is no question what you have to do, and there are options. And all of us did that.
But the options are telling you what to do, isn't it?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
Ma'am, that's why we were so much confused.
So we were given second round. The university called up every student who took the exam in that slot, and then they reopened the link for us. But for 3 days, this was a continuous problem we faced, especially in the second clauses linguistics paper.
I don't know why that would be the case, because the question would be in the cell. Ideally, it would say identify which is the underlined one, or which
there was no underlined, ma'am. There were many questions. It said underlined, but there was no bold, no underlined word. So we didn't know what to do. So it was just a guesswork.
That may be a system problem. Yeah, that may be a system problem that
they rectified it later on.
Yeah.
But still it continued for.
Yeah, so that is a system. Yeah, that is a system problem that I can't have any, help over. So I can't help you with that. So yeah. So that is a kind of questions that you will get. I mean, that also I had done earlier. So the final question paper that you got had the format that we had kind of discussed, isn't it? Like you would have the underlined question, and then you would be told, identify which type of clause it is, or which of the following, this sentence does not have which of the following clauses, types of clauses, those kinds. So similarly, you may have it from here, where you would be given a line. You won't be given a word. You'll be given a line, and you'll be asked, this line does not have back-oriented vowels, front-oriented vowels, back vowels, front vowels, back-oriented diphthong, center-oriented diphthong. So you will have to read all the words in that line and figure out whether there is center-oriented diphthong or not. That's how you will have to do. Okay, so coming back, yeah. So coming back to this point, just so that I can complete this part and then we go ahead. You have sounds which basically there are, 8 types of sounds of diphthongs. So a-e, a-u, o-e, a-u, pu. If someone is speaking, please speak up. Otherwise, mute yourself. I'm going to mute. Yeah. All right. So what you would have with this is the sound, sorry, front-oriented would be a, day, air, hair, fair, dare, okay, air, ear, here, dear, near, lear, clear, okay, and center oriented. And this is what gives me back to that O sound. There is no O sound in English. In the original English language, in the received pronunciation, when I say original English language, there's no such thing as original English language. English only came about in the 9th century and is anyway a bastard language of the Germans and the French and the Latin. It's like Urdu. It's a mix. It's an army language. Anyway, the Queen's English does not have O sound. It has O sound, which is how, if you hear a lot of the, the Australian commentators on bowling, if you ever do it, they won't say bowling, they will say bowling. Oh, they won't say no, they will say no, go, low, do. It is not oh, it is oh. Oo, that is how it is pronounced. So every O sound is actually O sound that comes in. But as we speed up our language, as we speak quicker, as we spend less time in focusing on one sound versus the other, we create new pronunciation styles. And that is where we have our O sound, which is how we say no, go, low, etc. But typically, there is no, in Queen's English, O sound. There is go, no, low, do. That's how it is.
So, ma'am, how will we write no in transcription then?
The way it is written out here, no.
Okay.
No, and no is not the capital, it is the no as in the small no.
Okay.
Because that will be there, and oh, so you will write.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so you will write no. 1 second. This is how you would write it. The same thing will write for no, right? Or go. So that's how you would write it. So these are important. You will have to go back and rehearse and practice. the way that you're going to get asked questions if they are MCQs
So, ma'am,
will be.
the word,
yes.
Sorry for interruption, ma'am. So
Sure.
the word so, low, all this comes under center oriented?
Yes. So, yes. Yes.
LOW, low?
Yeah.
Flow again?
Anything that is O sound is low, go. So it is low. So low, right?
Flow.
The way you would write it is low. If it is, what did you say? So. So this word will be so, oo. So you just sound much more fancier when you say this. So the way that I think about it, that's how you have to do it.
Okay, ma'am.
You just have to get an accent for this while. That's it. Okay, so it's just that much. It's the fact that there is no O sound. So whenever you're saying an O sound, you will be actually having to say it as O. That's how it is written. O. That's what the Queen's English is. This does not mean that all Englishes are the same. The Queen's English, the received pronunciation, has this as the accent. One of the reasons why we only give you British poems for transcription is for this reason, because obviously American poems do not follow the same transcription because they don't follow the same pronunciation system. You would not be able to use the same pronunciation system with Indian words because Indians pronounce certain words very differently. And that is very important. The way that you say schedule versus schedule, both are fine, but one is American. Schedule is American. Schedule is in British, which is how we also say schedule, because we say schedule caste, schedule tribe, schedule, etc., all coming from British English. And when we say British English, it is primarily the Queen's English that we are looking at, not the other dialects of English that are there in English language. In Great Britain itself, Irish don't speak the same way that the Brits do. And the Scottish definitely don't speak it the same way. So the way to go back to your question, how it will be asked in questions, is that you must know all the vowels. The way you can get asked is, say I use a sentence like I have a car. I can ask you, this sentence does not have a plosive, a velar, a fricative, and approximant, which is the one it does not have. A plosive, a velar, a fricative, and approximant. I have a car.
Plosive?
Come out here.
Plosive?
It has a plosive. Ka is plosive and velar.
Okay.
Approximant?
Yes, because approximant there is only wa, ra, ya. Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So you would have to know it in that manner, perhaps. And that's the only way that we can test you in multiple choice questions, because the symbols are havoc to create on that whatever. Apparently, that does not translate well. I don't know why you guys had a problem with this, because we have created the multiple choice questions for linguistics earlier, and that did not have a problem. So I don't know why you guys have. So you would have these letters. If you had been in open test, then you would have had to transcribe it like this. But because you don't have open test, what we will give is just this line, like I have the measles and the mumps. And then we will ask you whether it does not have lateral, fricative, plosive, nasal. No, I put in everything. So it does not have lateral, fricative, nasal, and approximate. And again, approximate it does not have, because I have the measles and the mumps does not have were, or year in it. So that would be your statement. Or it could be that for vowels, it could be asking, does it have it does not have a diphthong or front oriented open vowel or close front vowel or open back vowel. Does it have open back vowel? I have the measles and the mumps. Please look at the transcription at the side also. Does it have open back vowel? I think and is. And is not an open back vowel. And is an open front vowel. A is an open front vowel. Spread lips. A is an open back vowel. It does not have it. It has a diphthong, but it's not really a vowel sound by itself. Yeah. So that is how you will have to perhaps practice and know. That's how you will get it to some extent. And yes, this takes practice, which is why I started with this, just as I did last time with the clauses and phrases. It takes practice. It is a bit tough, but it is not altogether without common sense. Once you learn it, you know, one of the best things to do is put it up as a chart paper, but also know the sound. You know, don't by heart the pronunciation as much as know the sound. And we are not going to make it so tough that, you know, it's about pronunciation. As I said, many of us who teach this language are not bugs of pronunciation at all. So we understand that you will make some errors. And so we're not going to give those very close options. But we do expect you to know the difference between a plosive and a fricative, and to know whether there is a fricative sound or not. It may be that you write his as his instead of his. That's okay. So we're not going to be that close and marking you. We're not going to ask you that close questions. Generally not. Because none of us who teach this paper are these bugs of the RP pronunciation. And that's a good thing, because it's not about pronunciation alone. It is about the fact that you need to understand the sound system, to understand how sounds create an impact. And a very simple thing of this is, and I have to go, guys, it's going to be, you know, things, but let me just ask you this very quick question. And I always ask this for my vowel sounds. If you were in the lobby and you had two rooms, one to your left and one to the right, someone on your right screamed, ah, and someone to your left screamed, ee. You have to go only in one direction to help. Whom would you help? You're in the lobby, someone to your right in another room.
Ma'am, the A1.
And there is a psychology test that apparently psychologists had nothing better to do than do this test in 178 countries around the world, in different tribal contexts and in different contexts, including rural, tribal, urban, everything. And bang on, irrespective of the language you spoke, everyone said they would rush towards, I mean, everyone did move towards the R sound and not the E sound. The E sound is a closed sound. The E sound is something where your lips are spread. It is internalizing. You are internalizing. You don't want to share. That's why you're saying, ee! You're disgusted, but you don't want to scream out aloud and call attention to yourself, or you are frightened of making a mistake and you're like, ee! But when you say, ah, it is open, your mouth is open, you are ready to invite the world, you're ready to move on, is the kind of cultural understanding that apparently we all share to a large extent as humans. And they have done this in so many different countries, and everywhere they have the thing. So there is a sound impact on us, which is why certain languages sound sweet to us, which is why certain languages sound harsh to us, which is why even if anyone speaks Russian, it just sounds harsh to us because they have a lot of consonants in their sound. Arabic sounds harsh because they have a lot of consonants that go one after the other in their sounds. The songs are beautiful, but the language, when they speak it, it sounds, and they thrust a lot. So there's a lot of aspiration, just as we have for Hindi also. But there would be a lot of aspirated sounds that come in. So there's a lot of expulsion of breaths, which sounds harsh. Compare that to a lot of sounds which may use a lot of vowels in them. Bengali is one of them in Indian languages, uses a lot of vowels in its words. And so it just sounds sweeter, it sounds musical. A lot of the Mandarin, Korean, they use a lot of nasal sounds. Nasal sounds good to some people, to other people, they just don't get it. So Himesh Reshamia is celebrated somewhere and not celebrated many other places. That's the kind. So it's one is perception, the one is the altitude in which you live in, or the coastal area or the desert area you live in has created a certain kind of language. And it has also created a certain kind of impact on the listener. That's why we are trying to get you to learn this. That's the purpose of the entire exercise. In the exam, it gets tested in a very different way, but it can be a beautiful thing to explore and experiment with. You said this is not there in the drive, is it? So let me just push it right now to the drive. Done. It should be now visible. Can you just check, refresh and check whether it is visible?
1 second, I will check and let you know.
Yeah. It should be called UoM SEM2.
Ma'am, until this is getting done, can I pose a question?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, if like looking forward for whatever exam what we will have to take, either be it an MCQ or it probably I pray it be a MCQ.
It will be
Then
MCQ by going by Omicron statistics right now. Yes.
Yeah. So ma'am, then if I have to begin to study this, because I have been trying to read this since morning, and now what I heard here, now I am like a little confused with the whole lot, like what I tried. And one sentence which I really appreciated was to go by the pronunciation and not by the alphabet. Because in the morning when I was studying, I was trying to look as some hint as to the A and the
it's
E
very
placed
confusing.
together and all of that. So I did all my plus and additions and subtractions nevertheless.
So
but
let
if
me,
I have to,
yeah.
but that if I have to actually start beginning to do this, as far as I have understood now, I have to keep this particular chart what you have given us in front of us, correct, and somehow try to memorize this, correct. The second would be to identify the symbols which are being given, because I find it very difficult with symbols. But nevertheless, I'll have to make an
in the
effort, right?
MCQ exam, let me just make it very clear to you. In the MCQ exam, you are not really going to be given symbols for a particular reason. The symbols are, I mean, if you think underline and bold is getting messed up in that system of theirs, symbols is a whole different ball game that they mess up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They have, I mean, we tried once, and not just us, because symbols are used in a lot of other exams like mathematics and statistics and economics, and they basically the trial screwed it up. And so we were like, nahi jaane do, hame karna hi nahi hai. Like, it's just not possible. They didn't mess up in the first exam. I mean, I'm not talking of your exams. Your exams were later. There was an IDOL 100 marks paper that had come before y'all. And that we had tried out, and the bold and the italics and everything worked fine. So it's also surprising to me to hear about this problem. But anyway, that aside, symbols, we will, in the MCQ, we will not be able to test. As simple and straightforward as that. So what we will test is, we also will not test on one word, because personally, I refuse to do that. I'm like, heed ka, ha, e, da, heed, hid. I mean, that's ridiculous at MA level. So what we will be asking you is the kind of questions that I asked you right now. Right? Much of it is going to be the kind of questions that I asked you right now. The alliterative effect, which is the most repeated sound. For instance, are nasals most repeated in I have measles and mumps? Which is the most repeated sound? Are the nasal sounds most repeated? Are the fricatives most repeated? Are the plosives most repeated? Are the glottal sounds most repeated? And that is easy to identify. The nasals are most repeated, measles, mumps, and right? So it should have been easy to find out. Are there more back-oriented vowels, front-oriented diphthongs, back-oriented diphthongs, front vowels, back vowels? Those can be the questions that you can get. So you should understand where the sound is coming from. I would really, when you were saying, Anil, that you may want to repeat, you may want to by heart the chart, I personally teach this paper as not a by-hearting paper, so it kind of discomforts me in that way. But yes, you could kind of remember the chart in that sense. But you could also logically apply logic and think about which other sound systems. But I understand what you mean. You can keep that chart. I have drawn up so many charts and so many ways of representing for that reason. You could draw it up, keep it at the back of your calendar, and just keep flipping it and seeing it every day, like you worship it for 5-10 minutes every day, and it will sink in. But my thing is that try and remember the logic of the sound system, the use of it, so that you can appreciate the beauty of why we deal with phonology, and not just look at it saying ki ye 25% of my paper is based on this horrible thing. That's not the idea. The idea is, how does a sound writer, a speech writer, and by the way, speech writers are taught this in creative writing. What does it take to create a speech that people will remember? What are the kinds of focus that you have to remember? If you think mellifluous things, if you are thinking that I can, yes, I can, the way that you want to break up the syllables, the way that you want to have a pause. If you want to have a pause, then you must have a consonant sound there, because that is when there will be the pause. Otherwise, it will just flow, right? It will just glide. Vowels glide together. So do I want to just glide? Do I want to pause? Do I want to break it up? Do I want to move from one to the other? How do I move that? Then speech writers are thinking through this. Advertisers are thinking through this. And they pay attention to the sound of the words. Can everyone around the world use the same, for instance, Anusha is not Anusha in Bengal, it is Anusha. So if I am trying to think of a name for my brand, I will also try and look around the world languages and try and think about the brand in terms of phonology of how they pronounce, whether it is there in their vocabulary or not, and then try and think whether my name can be molded in a different way for my brand. So brands use this. So many places this has got practical applications for, in addition to poetry and drama and speech, of course. So yes, when Javed Akhtar says meter mein likho and stuff like that, this is there from there also. So you might want to explore this in different ways, but I understand from the exam perspective, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Ma'am, actually, this comes to my mind also because the exercise what is being given at the back of after the lesson went back, it has only words. It does not have sentences per se. So and
yeah, but that is not how it would be tested in either the exam, neither in multiple choice questions nor in the exam. That was just for practice. Just कि आप practice करो एक word के साथ. Just from that angle.
And also did not understand that three label thing what read.
Three label is basically the diphthongs, like for instance in consonant, the place of articulation, manner of articulation, type of articulation. So per is bilabial plosive, and unvoiced. B is bilabial, plosive, voiced. And with your vowel sound, A is back, rounded lips, open. E is front, closed, and spread lips. That is the 3-term label. Center, as I said, is neutral. And for diphthongs, you just have to give that 1-term label, which is back-oriented, front-oriented. That's all that will be there.
Ma'am, and also
there is
one more problem comes is because even if you are not going to be asked, and even if the exercise has that particular, one single thing, one single word. So I look at it like, now when you tell me it's going to be a sentence, probably it will be of some relief for us. But if it had to be just words, okay, it had to be just words, then what happens is we do not have the key to that thing. So what I'm thinking is right or wrong, I can never judge. And that is
no, you can't, and which is why I said we are not bugs of our piece. None of us are. So we don't give those kinds of questions, because then there is only one right pronunciation, especially in MCQ. Because in the exam, we could have thought of it and said his, right? For instance, his and his. Some people will pronounce it as his, sir. Most people will pronounce it as his book, because हम pronounce वो emphasize dete hain. But when we are correcting, we don't really penalize you. When you're writing in an open-ended exam, we don't penalize you for either of it. We just award it from that. Of course, if you wrote something else as he's instead of his, then we penalize you, because it is like, boss, he's kahan se aaya? Like, kahan se aaya? So we penalize you. So we want to penalize, right? And where we want to give it affordance. So our keys also are very similar in that way. But in the multiple choice, we can't be doing that. So we are not going to give you words.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I have to leave. It is 8:20 now. And if I don't go and prepare dinner, my family will throw me out. So I am going to do that.
Thank you very much.
I will see you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome. Bye. Good night.